we've got problems we're not even prepared to be honest about. And let's actually spell some of them out. Number one is we keep being lied to that we have a growing economy. We don't. We do not have a growing economy. Growth this year was 0.7%, so technically we're growing. But how is that achieved? I mean, one of the things that really I came away from Australia fundamentally with my views altered very significantly is I hadn't quite realized how poor Britain is in comparison to many other countries, even in the Anglosphere. And I don't mean as GDP, because the UK has the 6th biggest GDP, we're the 6th richest country in the world, apparently, except when you actually look at GDP per capita on a purchasing parity basis, we are the 27th country in the world. I mean, I have friends who moved to Australia, who I met out there, who work in the healthcare system. They doubled their salary the day they moved. I was amazed to see the guys who work in your mines and drive trucks and do all those other things, how well they do for themselves and their family. They're actually able to feed a family of 4 on one income. It's almost unimaginable for people here, including, well-paid lawyers and bankers sometimes even. So the first thing is the reason we have a huge influx every year of legal immigration is that we are bringing people in who work for low wages, in low-skilled jobs, who, as you no doubt have discovered when you pop into a coffee shop or anywhere else, there are no British people to be found working in them anymore, really, particularly in the big cities. And the reason is that we are importing those people so we can pretend to be growing. So we can say, Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer can walk out there and say, we've got growth, 0.8%, and which, those figures would have been negative if we hadn't been doing that. But the question is that making us as a society more prosperous? Is that beneficial to all of us? I remember somebody was telling me about a politician who went to a strawberry farm and said, well, what would happen if you didn't have the cheap labor? Because this is what we keep being told. We bring people to do the jobs that we need to do. And he said, well, we'd automate. We'd get machines to do this job. And that's how you increase productivity. We should be doing that. But instead, we basically steal all the bright people from Eastern Europe and elsewhere in the world who've got PhDs in mathematics and medicine and whatever, and put them in to pick fruit in our fields. I don't know that that's sustainable for us or the world. So that's number one. Number two is we have an aging population and a unrestricted, unlimited commitment to taking care of that population in terms of health. Without any way of funding that as that continues to spiral out of control. So our healthcare costs are rising. The message people are being told is, well, it's the evil Tories, they just don't care about people. When the fact is that the demographic trends are such that is either we're going to spend half our income on healthcare, and we're already well on our way towards that, or we're going to have to do something creative about that, which is, to have some kind of combination of insurance or copay or something. We're going to have to do something. But again, we're just being told that this is an ideological issue, when in fact it's a practical one. The debt to GDP point you made is, of course, exactly the same. Our debt is greater than our GDP at this point. So when you have a government like the Labour government come in, they'd like to borrow and spend, but they increasingly can't. Because we have the highest tax burden since World War II, and our debt to GDP ratio is over 100%. So on all of these issues, I agree with you, there are no easy solutions. It doesn't, by the way, there are no simple solutions, because we confuse those two things very often. Some solutions are hard and simple. But what they require, as you say, is honesty. And I wouldn't for one moment suggest that the more populist movements, including Reform or others, have a carefully crafted and perfectly costed manifesto. But I think the reason that people are enthused by them is they're at least willing to identify the problem, which is we're not growing the economy. We are using mass migration to pretend that we are, and we've got all these other structural problems that we're completely unwilling to address. So, yes, more honesty is needed, and you're completely right, John. It seems to me politicians, and look, it's hard to blame just them, because we live in a media ecosystem which punishes people for telling the truth. And that's a massive worry to me, because, take the case of Suella Braverman. I don't agree with everything she says, but she was sacked from government for telling the truth about two-tier policing, about the fact that we had marches in which people were chanting for jihad and nothing was being done about it, about the fact that the government under Rishi Sunak was unwilling to tackle the small boats in the way that it should have been, etc., etc., etc. And now when I talk to other people in the Conservative Party, well, they say, well, Suella could, she's discredited herself because, yes, she may be right on the points, but when you give the media ammunition to attack you the way they do, and most of our voter base watches TV and reads the papers, they haven't yet caught on to this YouTube thing that you and I are doing. That's irresponsible, and that makes her very disliked, and that limits her chances. So then if the incentive structure is for people to lie, then it's hard to see where the truth is going to be coming from, unless you have outsiders coming in and saying, these two rotten parties are not serving you anymore. And that's what we continue to do.